all, welcome back to Node.js tutorial course. I hope you all have watched my previous sessions which explains different concepts of Node.js and some of the live coding sessions. If not, I have given links in the description box. Please do watch. Today I'm here to explain you all about Node.js web servers, how to create a web server, and what are the features and the usage. Okay, and also we'll also be showing the live example on how to use them. So let's now try to understand what are these web servers. Okay, so basically web servers are nothing but a software or a hardware, or could be a both together, which stores and delivers content to a web browser at a basic level. Okay, so basically assume you have a google.com, right? If you click on it, you get lots of content, right? So that is nothing but it is coming from the web server. So here web servers communicate with browser using HTTP, which is hypertext transfer protocol. Okay, so it can also support SMTP, which is simple mail transfer protocol, and FTP, which is file transfer protocol. Okay, so here if you see are also used for hosting websites and data for web applications. Okay, they can host a single website, or it can be a multiple website using some kind of virtualization. So here the Node.js is an open source environment, as I have told in the previous session, right? So it uses JavaScript on the server. So the task of a web server is to open a file on the server and return the content to the client. Okay, so that is about the main task of a web server. Okay, so Node.js has a built-in module called HTTP, which allows Node.js to transfer data over the hypertext transfer protocol, which is HTTP. Okay, so HTTP module can create a HTTP server that actually listens to some ports and gives a response back to the client. Okay, this is how the actual Node.js server will be created using HTTP. So I'll be showing all these examples in the upcoming slides on how to create a simple HTTP server. Okay, so as I told, it can handle the HTTP request for the web application, right? Like as you if you are a .NET, or if you know how does .NET work. So the .NET is usually deployed on IIS web server, right? And for example, Java or PHP applications will be deployed under Apache server. So that is some of the examples which I can highlight, which means it's a what are the different types of web servers we have across the technology, right? And this has a capability to create our own web server which will handle the HTTP request asynchronously. Okay, that is a main advantage of the Node.js web server. So now in this next few slides, I'm going to show you the different features of this web servers and create a simple HTTP web server, and show different list of features which it has. Okay, okay, so let me show you in this particular section how to create a simple web server. Okay, so Node.js provides a HTTP module, which is actually a core module which helps us to create a web server. Okay, so before we need to use it, right, we need to install the HTTP module. Okay, so let me do one thing. Let me create a new folder here called first server. Okay, and let me open my terminal in this particular folder. Okay, let me first install npm i http. Okay, see, my HTTP module has been installed. Now I'm going to create a file called server.js. Okay, And since we have installed HTTP module, we are going to import it using HTTP equal to require of HTTP. Okay, so we have imported a module as I told in the previous sections or lessons, right? Require method or require is used to import the required module. Okay, so let's now see how to use this HTTP module to create a server. So let me create var server equal to HTTP dot. So you can see here what are the options it has, right? So we have to create a server. So let's create server and then followed with uh, the what is that it should do on after we create a server, right? So let's create a function, okay, with request dot response, and we can give whatever the console you want to give, right? Mm, my first server, okay, and now, since we have created a server, obviously it has to listen to some port, right? So we can do like server dot listen of maybe 3000. Okay. Now let's give a console stating my server is running. My server is running on port 3000. Okay. So okay, so now we have created a simple web server. So what we did is we imported a HTTP module. We used a create server function of that HTTP module to create a server, and we have listened to the port 3000. Okay, let's now try to run this server.js. Okay, node server.js. You guys can see my server is running. Okay, so if I hit this server, right, localhost 300, you can see you won't get any response in the browser, but you can see it gave me the response as my first server, right? So now assume I want to send back some response to the browser. You can see nothing has come up, correct? So I want to send some response back to the browser, right? So what I have to do is I'll have to write response dot send of my first server. Okay, let's do that. Response dot send of my first server. Okay, so let's top the server and restart it. Sorry, it should be my mistake. So, so you guys can see it is listening now. Okay, it's hitting now. So let me just, okay, it actually loaded on its own, and you can see my first server has been populated here. Okay, so this is one of the example or a simple web server to be created using our Node.js HTTP module. Okay. So now let's see how to handle the HTTP request, right? So as we saw in the create server method actually includes request and response parameter, right? So this is actually supplied by Node.js, right? So the request object can be used to get information about the current request which has been made, that is the URL or the request header or a data. Okay, whereas the response object can be used to send a response for a current HTTP request. Okay, so that is about the request and the response. So let's see how we can have a different, basically every URL can, the one which we saw here, right? It is just localhost 3000, correct? So now we need to just check on the different set of routes which we can create using the request object. Okay, so let's do one thing. First, what we can do is if request. So as I told, the request is the one which will help us to know what are the request URL or its parameters, etc. So let's now see URL equal to, if it contains just slash, right? Sorry. If it contains just slash, then what we can do is we can just pass a like we can just give a different response to the client. Okay, so let's see, let me just copy this. Okay, and what I'll do is response and just my first simple base route. Okay, okay, so this is how the response I'm going to give if it is just a slash. Okay, now let me see else if. Okay, so request dot URL equal to, then beyond I just can give student. Okay, then what I do is I'll give a different send response. So my first student route. Okay, and the same way if I have to do it for a different route called student or maybe person. Okay, persons, so I can just give, sorry, it's person, and I can just give my first person route. Okay, and if nothing matches or if nothing is there, right, or none of the route or the has been matched, then I'm going to give just some wrong or invalid, my invalid request. Okay, okay, so what we did here is we are just capturing the request.url if it just has a slash or slash student or slash person, and then accordingly we are going to give a response back to the client. Okay, let's now start this server and see how it works. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll just reload this. You can see it is my first base row because it just have a slash, right? Now let me give as student. See my first student route. And the same way if I give person, my first person route. Okay, this is how we can handle the request based on the different routes using our HTTP module. Okay. Okay, so now let's see how do we return different types of content. Okay, so in the previous section I have explained how to create a basic web server. Okay, now let's see how do we return different types of contents. Okay, the response we return from web server can be a variety of formats, like it could be a JSON, it could be CSV, or it could be HTML, or different types of content, right? And it could be XML as well, right? So and also web servers can return non-text data like PDFs, videos, audios, etc. So in this couple of next live examples, I'm going to show how do we return JSON or CSV or HTML content data back to the
client. Okay, so these three, whichever I'm going to show, is all text based and are popular formats for delivering content on the web. So here basically to achieve this, first there are two steps we have to do. One is to set the content type header for our HTTP responses, and another one to ensure that when we send back the response or end the response, we pass the actual right format data. Okay, so let's get started with the JSON now. And as everybody know, JSON is nothing but JavaScript object notation, commonly referred as JSON, and it is a text-based data exchange format, and it is derived from the JavaScript object. And usually, if you see, most of the APIs, which is the backend APIs, will be on JSON to accept and the return data. Uh, it is popular due to lower data transfer size than the previous data exchange standards like XML. Okay, so now let's try to check how we can pass the JSON data to the client. Okay, so for now, I'm gonna comment this out, and let's create, as I told, first we need to set the header content type so that the server accepts it as an application JSON. Okay, let's do that. Response dot set header, then we have to pass content type, and we have to pass application slash JSON. Okay, so now we have set the header, which basically adds an HTTP header to the response. Okay, so this header, the set header usually takes two arguments. One is header name, which is content type, and its value, that is application JSON. So the content type is header is basically used to indicate the format of the data, right? Like what kind of data we are going to pass or the transfer between the client and the server. Okay. And now let's so now let's send back a 200 header, the response, right head response. Okay. Okay, the next section is sending a JSON response altogether. Assume the server, we have to pass some JSON response, right? So we need to send a JSON response. So JSON response, you can just paste whatever the JSON you want. For now, I'm just gonna give a simple JSON. Welcome. JS tutorial. Okay. So almost we are there, and we are good to start the server now and see the response. Okay, you can see the server is started, and let's hit 3000 and check it out. How does it respond? You can see the JSON response has been displayed in the browser. Okay, so now let's see how to serve CSV content as a response back to the client. Okay, so let's comment this out, and let's go ahead and uh, write the code to serve CSV content. So as we you all know, okay, CSV is another type of text standard that is commonly used for providing tabular data, right? So in most cases, each row is separated by a new line, and each item in the row is separated by comma. Okay, it's basically called as comma separated value, CSV. Okay, so same as how we did for JSON, we need to set the header, we need to do a write head, and we need to uh, send the response, CSV response. In addition to it, we need to also set another header called content disposition. Okay, so let's go one by one. So let's for now we'll set the content type header. Okay, content type. Okay, and so content type for CSV would be text slash CSV, whereas for JSON we had given application slash JSON. Okay, so CSV. Then we have to set another header called content disposition. Okay, basically this header tells the browser how to display the data, like particularly in a browser or a separate file. Okay, and if you don't give this content disposition, right, by default it will take consider as a file and then give you in a download.csv file. Okay, for now let's set this header and we can see how does it responds. Okay, disposition and value, what we are going to do is uh, we will make it, we can say okay it's an attachment and the name of the file which will be downloaded will be this. Okay, so let's give this way. So the disposition type would be attachment. Okay, and file name, so what it should be downloaded as, right? So sample CSV. Okay, this would be my downloaded file. Okay, so the next what I have to do is I have to write head the response. Okay, so I'll just select this, then I'll write 200. Next, the thing is I need to send the response. Okay, so the sample response I will give like with ID is a column, it's a comma separated, right? So name, uh, email. Okay, and the values will be separated with slash n. Okay, then we can give ID as 1, then name as John, and then email ID as john.smith at gmail.com. Okay, so now we have the data. So what we did here, we have set the header, content type header, we have set content disposition header, we have we are sending back the CSV response. Okay, so now let's save this and go ahead and run the server. Now let's navigate to our browser and access localhost 3000. And you can see the time I access it, I can see my file has been downloaded, that is sample.csv. And let me click sample.csv and we'll see what data it has. You can see all my CSV content, whatever has been posted has been uh, pushed to this CSV file. So the name of the file is sample. Okay, so that's about how we push the data to CSV. And in case if you don't give this particular statement, right, so it gets downloaded with a default name, so which we can show you. So let me restart again and then go and navigate to localhost 3000, and you can see it has been downloaded with download.csv with the same set of data. Okay, so that is about how we serve the CSV content. Okay, so the previous two recordings are mainly on the serving CSV and JSON files. So now let's see how to serve HTML file. Okay, I hope everybody know what HTML is. Basically, it's a hypertext markup language and most common format to use when we want users to interact with our server via web browser, right? So it's basically a web content, right? So web browsers are built to display the HTML content and as well as some kind of styles like CSS, right? Okay, so here also the same thing, like how we did for JSON. We had application slash JSON as a content type. For CSV we had text slash CSV. The same way for HTML we have text slash HTML as a content type, and then we have to set the right head and send back the response in a HTML format. Okay, so let's start writing those code. So for now, let me comment this out. Okay, so let me go ahead and set header. So basically content type, which is going to be text slash HTML. Then we have to write head of 200. Okay, then we have to write response dot end of then the HTML, or whatever the page you want to show, right? So you can show that way. So let me write simple HTML tag, HTML, sorry. Okay, uh, then I will mention a body. Okay, then I will just give a head tag. Okay, just for a simple HTML tag. So this is my first HTML page. Okay, so this is how we send back the HTML content. So what we did here, we have set the header, which is content type header, which is text slash HTML. Then we have set the right head and we have sent the response in a HTML format. Okay, now let's save this and restart the server. Okay, so server is up and running. Now let's navigate to localhost 3000 and you can see that my HTML content has been displayed. So this is how you serve the different set of HTML content to a browser. Okay, so this is so simple how to serve the HTML content. Okay, so now in the previous section, we have seen how to serve an HTML content as a string to the user, right? But here we are gonna see how we can load the HTML files and serve that content to the user. So this way, what happens is HTML, if assume the HTML file grows, right? We don't have to maintain those long strings in our code, which is not actually a good practice or the best practice, right? So it's always best practice to have this HTML files as a separate and then serve as a file to the client. Okay, to serve the HTML file, basically like to load that HTML file, right, we need to use this fs module. And so fs module, the details will be shown in the next few of the sessions. But yeah, the fs module is a file system module where it will allow us to read the contents of the files. Okay, so just for easy easy of our or to speed up these session, I already have created and one of the HTML file, that is index.html here, which has only a few of the basic simple web page, which will give you the header as welcome to Node.js tutorial, and this is example of serving HTML page from file. Okay, so I'm going to use this file instead of having this hard coded, the maintaining this HTML file in the Node.js code. I have a separate HTML which I will be using or calling that HTML or serving those content of the HTML in Node.js. Okay, for now let's comment this out and then see how we can import or use the index.html to serve the content. Okay, so as I told, the first thing we have to do is to import the fs module, which is required to read the content. Okay, so let's type import the fs module. Okay, okay, so now we have fs module imported, and next what we have to do is we have to read the index.html files. For that, let's call fs.read file of, so it is in my current directory, right? So that way I'll just give directory name plus, and then the file name is index.html. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll just put then, right? And once you are able to find or you are able to read this particular index.html, then whatever the red content, right, red content should be processed or should be used further, right? So let me now set header of content type. It's again the content type would remain same, just the way we pass the HTML content varies. Okay, and response dot write head will be always 200. Okay, and we are going to serve the contents directly. Okay, so this is about the positive scenario where we have the response or with the fs module is able to get the response. Assume there are scenarios where we think that okay, fs module while reading it caused some error, right? So during that time we can just cache the error, and then we can send back those error as a response to the client, just to indicate okay there is an error. Okay, so error code I'm just going to give for now 500, and response dot end of error. Okay, and then I'll return from here. Okay, so this is how this we read. What we have did here is we are reading the index.html file, and we are once it is read, right, so it's actually a async method, so which will actually, once that file is read, it just process that files and send back the response. If there is an error, it sends back the error. Okay, so now let's stop the server and then restart it and see how our server is serving the content. Okay, you can see that my new web page with with as a separate HTML page, right, has been served as a HTML file. So this is the very simple method how we can serve the HTML content as a file to the client.
Okay, so now you all have a good idea about how Node.js server works, how you can create a simple server and with the live code examples and also some of the majorly used examples. So in the next session, I would be explaining more about the Node.js file system and its different features and few examples on the same. Thank you for watching. If you like my session, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. See you in next session.